Hey y'all, it's entry number 95 of this off-season series where we discuss a different player's fantasy value each day as a group. We are another day closer to the start of the 2022 NFL season. Each day we'll drop a name, go through some positives and some concerns of their fantasy profile, and then I'll give my personal opinion at the end. Today's discussion will be on Rhamondre Stevenson, running back, New England Patriots. We'll start with the positives with Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile, efficiency and talent. Rhamondre Stevenson was pretty efficient in 2021, averaging 4.6 yards per carry and 8.8 yards per reception. He showed quite a bit of elusiveness as well, posting the fourth highest juke rate among running backs at 35.4% and evading 52 tackles, the 26th most among running backs according to Player Profiler. This kind of talent makes it more likely that Stevenson has a decent role in the Patriots offense in 2022. The next thing I like about Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile is that he's got a solid offensive line. The Patriots will be bringing back 3 of their 5 offensive linemen from the 2021 season in 2022, Isaiah Wynn, David Andrews, and Trent Brown. The 2 starters they lost were right guard Shaq Mason, who left to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and left guard Ted Karras, who left to join the Cincinnati Bengals. Even with a couple of changes, the Patriots' offensive line should be good once again and are ranked 7th on Pro Football Focus's 2022 preseason rankings. This solid offensive line will make it easier for Stevenson to put up fantasy numbers. The last thing I really like about Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile this year is that he might be the Patriots' third down back in 2022. Longtime New England Patriots running back James White retired this offseason, so the third down back and primary pass catching role is up for grabs. It has been rumored that Rhamondre Stevenson has gotten some work in this role so far this offseason. If this is true and Stevenson takes on this role, then he'll have quite a bit of value as a true dual threat back. Moving on to some of the concerns with Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile. Damien Harris and the Patriots running back room. Damien Harris was a very capable running back last year, scoring 15 rushing touchdowns, which ranks 2nd in the NFL alongside James Conner, behind Indianapolis Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. Harris also averaged 4.6 yards per carry and had 14 carries of 15 or more rushing yards in 2021, which ranked as the 5th most in the NFL according to Player Profiler. If you've been playing in the same fantasy league for a while, chances are that someone mentions the "don't draft a Patriots running back" idea every year after a Patriots running back goes off the board during your fantasy draft. The Patriots change their running back usage from week to week a lot more frequently than other teams, and their running back room is looking pretty deep on paper going into the 2022 season, with Harris, Rhamondre Stevenson, and rookie Pierre Strong Jr. all looking like capable options for the team. Because of all this, Stevenson is likely going to be operating in a committee this year, which may limit his upside. The next major concern I have with Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile is the Patriots' offensive play caller situation. Longtime New England Patriots offensive coordinator and play caller Josh McDaniels left this offseason to become the Las Vegas Raiders head coach, and brought along a few Patriots offensive assistants along with him that could have potentially served as the team's new offensive play caller. In response to this situation, the Patriots decided not to hire an official offensive coordinator at all this offseason and leave it as a mystery as to who would call the plays on offense. There's been speculation that Joe Judge or Matt Patricia will likely operate as the de facto offensive coordinator and play caller on game days, but regardless of who it is, it will likely be a downgrade from Josh McDaniels calling the plays, especially since the reports right now are that the offense looks scary bad. The last concern I have with Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile is his positive run percentage. This is a nitpicky concern, but last year Stevenson posted a positive run percentage of 84.2%, which was below average for a starting running back according to RotoWire. Some additional thoughts on Rhamondre Stevenson's fantasy profile. During the 2021 season, Rhamondre Stevenson finished as the RB36 in standard, with 100.9 total fantasy points and 8.4 fantasy points per game. The RB40 in half PPR formats, with 107.9 total fantasy points and 9.0 fantasy points per game, and the RB47 in full PPR formats, with 114.9 total fantasy points and 9.6 fantasy points per game, according to Fantasy Pros. In half PPR formats, during the 2021 season, Rhamondre Stevenson had 1 out of 12 games with negative fantasy points, 5 out of 12 games with 0 to 5 fantasy points, 2 out of 12 games with 5 to 10 fantasy points, 2 out of 12 games with 10 to 15 fantasy points, 0 out of 12 games with 15 to 20 fantasy points, 1 out of 12 games with 20 to 25 fantasy points, and 1 out of 12 games with over 25 fantasy points according to fantasy data. Personal opinion: Rhamondre Stevenson is currently going off the board as running back 33, about pick 102 overall on ESPN, and RB32, about pick 92 overall on Yahoo. This seems like the right spot to me for Stevenson. He's got a lot of talent, but I am pretty concerned about the state of the New England Patriots offense with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in charge, as well as the fact that Damian Harris likely makes this a committee. I won't reach for Stevenson necessarily, but I do prefer taking a shot on his upside versus taking Harris this year, and if he goes at his current price, I could see myself getting a few shares of him in 2022. For each of these entries, we will highlight a charitable cause or organization. I couldn't find a charity that Rhamondre Stevenson officially supports, so here's a link to his teammate, Mac Jones's My Cause My Cleats, which was for the Boston Children's Hospital. Here's a link to that organization below. And that's it for today's entry. If you enjoyed this entry, be sure to like and subscribe.